As I was watching the series, I found that Beth's talents were really a double-edged sword. Do you think the cost of what one might call genius or virtuosity is really worth it?
Oh, let's unpack that in 4 minutes.
Yeah,
I think
probably took up the
no, no,
whole
no, no, no,
time.
no. I love it. I think it is if you are willing to grow and learn. And growth is never an easy process. Anybody that tells you that like growing is supposed to be like this fun, I mean, sometimes it's fun, yeah, sure, but like there's a reason they're called growing pains. Like it hurts to expand and it hurts to grow into the person that you're supposed to be. And I think yes, Beth's talents can be seen as a double-edged sword, but really it's Beth herself. It's how she's able to cope with it. So is it worth it being a genius if you can figure out how to stop yourself from hurting yourself all the time? I think so.
I think she's always underestimated by her peers, and that really does affect her. How do you think that alters her trajectory in season one?
I think it's interesting because Beth exists like somehow out of society with her level of intellect where she's genuinely baffled when people bring up her gender. Like she doesn't understand why it's even a topic of conversation, which I think is a wonderful hope to have for us in the future, where you can have whatever dream and you are entitled to whatever dream, regardless of your gender or how you identify. So I think it kind of protects her in a way. It's almost like nobody gave her the book of you're a girl, this is what you're allowed to want. She just has sort of like unbridled enthusiasm for what she loves.
What part of her personality do you most identify with?
The thing that first struck me about her was that she was an inherently lonely person. I spent a lot of my life not understanding where I fit in and desperately wanting to find a place to fit in. And Beth found it in chess, and I found it in making art. Like this is the place I was looking for, and the space I was looking for. And so I definitely felt like I could tell that story of somebody desperately seeking a place where they could feel like themselves and feel like they had something to offer.
Do you feel like you really came into your own here on this series? Like was there a particular moment where you really felt like you grew as an actor?
I mean, yes. If you think about it, I've been working nonstop since I was 18 and I am now 24. So I have spent potentially some of my biggest years of growth with other characters and learning and growing through them. And particularly last year, I did 3 movies back to back with 3 very different characters, and each of them taught me something incredibly important. With Beth, I learned to take care of myself and to prioritize taking care of myself. And I am forever grateful to her for that.
Do you think the pandemic on top of that has also sort of made you reevaluate what you want out of acting or out of just your life in general?
I mean, without sounding crazy, I will forever be weirdly grateful, not for the pandemic, but for the space, because I realized that I've never had an opportunity to sit and understand what the whirlwind that I've been on for the last couple of years. And I think it's made me a much better actor because I'm not carrying around like all of this baggage of stuff I haven't dealt with yet. The
Sure.
first 2 weeks of lockdown, there was definitely like oh God, I'm gonna have to open the box and like go into all the stuff that I've like kept away from me for like 5 years. But again, growth is not easy, but it's necessary and it's great. So I am grateful for the growth.
So your character Alma has great potential and wit, and she's incredibly gifted, but I feel like her creativity is stifled due to just societal norms. How do you think Alma's station in life affects Beth's choices or outlook on life in the series?
That's part of what was so interesting about Alma as a character to play is she is somebody who could have been something so much better than she was, but she's very confined by her life as a housewife in an unhappy marriage. She's not able to fulfill her dream of becoming a pianist. And in many ways, she's sort of like one of the foils to Beth, including her own mother, who has
Sure.
kind of lost herself to madness. There are these examples of who you can become as women, and she doesn't want to become either of them. I'm sort of, Alma's an alcoholic housewife who who's really unhappy in many ways. And so I think in many ways, Beth has to look to these women and say, how do I want to be? How do I forge my own path that's different from these women?
Sure. You know, it was interesting when I was talking to Anya, her character almost seems unaware of that gender bias. She's almost confused by it.
Yeah.
So,
I think, Beth is such a fascinating character because the way her brain works is sort of different than the way other people's brain works. And I think something that Scott did that's so beautiful is he sort of figured out how to put that genius and the way her brain sees the world into a physicalization that you as an audience get to experience, and you get to really understand how her brain sees the game of chess and how that affects how she sees the world. And she almost has that like savant thing where she doesn't necessarily pick up on all of society's sort of norms. She also grows up in an orphanage, so she doesn't have access to the sort of way things are supposed to be.
sure.
But it gives her a more interesting outlook, I think.
Was there, speaking of Scott, was there sort of a time and place where he did something that both impressed you and confirmed a universal truth about what helps elevate good directing to great directing?
I'm a director, and so
Yeah, I'm sure
most of
you're
what
aware of the challenges that it poses.
my relationship with Scott is really director to director. Like I've visited his sets before. He's watched cuts of my movies. I've watched cuts of his shows. We really have that kind of relationship. So I knew him to be an incredible director. The only reason I could even put myself in a position to act in his series was because I knew I could trust him as a director. I don't think I could probably do that if I would feel the need to jump in and direct if I felt like I wasn't in good hands. So every day I felt like I was just getting to watch him hold so many stories. The thing that was incredibly impressive to me that I felt like I can't do is this series. I think they filmed for close to 100 days. In most movies, like A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, I filmed for 33 days.
Sure.
Can You Ever Forgive Me was 28 days. And part of your job as a director through that period of time is you're keeping all of the emotional through lines together in your head, and you're shooting them out of order, but you're having to kind of, so if an actor says to you, where am I like on this emotional scale? How far into this madness am I? How far into this anger am I? The answer because you've had it all tracked out. You have it all mapped out in your head, and you know how it's going to play out. To do that over a 7-part series over 100 days and to keep the emotional through line so that it's even going to make sense.
Yeah.
My mind. And I was exhausted just thinking about it. I just couldn't believe he was able to do it.
I guess I don't have much time left, but I wanted to ask you this. The story of Alma, like you said, is unfortunately a common story for many women. Are there some easy solutions that we should be implementing ASAP to create a more sustainable and egalitarian film industry?
No, there's no easy solutions. I think that's the thing, is it actually takes real dedication and real work for us to be making things more equitable in our world, both from a gender point of view and a race point of view. And I think part of what's tricky about this period of time is everybody is looking for really quick solutions or ways to show allyship to both women and people of color and non-binary people. And it actually requires much more of a dedication of all of us on all of our parts to be aware every day for the rest of our lives, not just in this moment. I think, undoing the years of the patriarchy and of white supremacy, it's just going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be quick.
Well, that's a great point to end on. I want to thank you so much for speaking with me. The show is fantastic. Your acting is fantastic, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Nice to talk to you.
Bye.
You too.
Maybe in hindsight, I was quite impressed with the fact that I managed to sort of say lines whilst doing chess moves, whilst hitting marks, whilst hitting lights. Just like all the things you've got in your head at the same time. Yeah. and just having to learn chess sequences very very quickly, and yeah, it was a lot. Sometimes there was a lot going on, so maybe that sort of that ability to sort of keep all those plates spinning at the same time was something that I achieved during this.
Sure. And Thomas, what about you?
I'd say probably the same thing, really. I mean, acting is, I've always loved that ever since I was a kid and I first got on set. I always just loved the fact that I could hide the fact that I was walking up and walking up to a little bit of tape taped to the floor, and that's where I knew that I was supposed to stop. But everyone else didn't see me looking down, and you hide loads of things and you catch the light in certain ways, but then adding the chess in there, well, it's the same answer. I'm giving the same answer here, but because it's very hard. I mean, it's very hard to pinpoint down when you realize you're growing as an actor. I mean, it all comes from just every experience you do. You grow a little bit, but it's very hard to pinpoint what exactly that is.
Sure. If you had to pick one scene in the series that really captures the spirit of the show, what would that be, you think?
Oh, well, without giving too much away, well, the thing is, I don't think I can say, because I'm going towards the end of the series here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't do that to the people. So, I mean, I found, I'm not just saying this, but I found the early stuff in the orphanage very, very, very interesting. Just it's such a good starting point in terms of where we eventually go, and makes a lot of sense in terms of what the character Beth, how she sort of unfolds during the series. So maybe one of the early sequences in the orphanage.
Sure. And Thomas, for you?
I was going to say the same thing, but I can't do that twice in a row. So I'm going to go with the opposite.
Man, you're like piggybacking off of him, man.
No, I'm going to say with the latest, in the Soviet scenes, right at the very end, you see this kind of the power and the oppression and the importance that's given to the game of chess. It's simply moving pieces around. But this game's been around for hundreds of years. They've been playing versions of chess for a long time, and yet it's still considered one of the best games around, even after we've made video games and things. And the importance of it for anyone that's in that world, the importance of what it means to get to that level. I felt that Queen's Gambit showed that impactful Soviet architecture and lighting, dramatic lighting, and the importance of what it was to be sat at one of those tables, having made it that far, really strikes home quite hard.
I'm curious, what do you think is the most important aspect of your character and Beth's relationship, friendship, really?
I think it's just that sort of friendship that is also family. Knowing someone so intimately that you don't have to be something else. You don't have to keep up the facade. You don't have to lie. You can just be who you are. And I think that's so important. I think that they're grounding for each other. Having gone from being kids to adults together, they definitely need each other.
Sure. So how did you prepare for this role? Was there anything that you did specifically in comparison to past roles?
This is, one thing I always love to do is write sort of backstory for the character. And then, as you start filming, you get into certain scenes with like the costumes and the makeup, and then you get to future scenes, and those other ones sort of serve as memories as well in a weird way. But it all just flows together really beautiful. I love the power of life before.
Do you think this show speaks to the chaotic time we're all living in right now? Is there sort of lessons we can glean from this show and maybe take with us to just kind of deal with this tumultuous era we're all kind of unfortunately in the midst of?
Yeah, so many. I think one at the top is addiction and keeping up appearances. I think we're in a time, obviously, where everyone is so isolated in their own little box. Is this my
Yeah.
Zoom box? Yeah, like in their own little place, and how you're getting by, how you're coping, is important, and imposter syndrome, and there's so many things, the racial tensions that are going on in the world, and being there's so many things that unfortunately are not very different from the period of time we were in then and to where we are now.
Sure. Has the pandemic at all sort of made you reevaluate your career and what sort of roles you want to do?
Not necessarily the roles I want to do, but um definitely who I am outside of it. Like, this is
Sure.
the first time that I've like not been doing something since I left school, and it was like a real eye opener, and like, well, what do I like? And who am I,
What would you like audiences to take away from the series if it's one particular thing?
That you shouldn't shrink under the pressure of your own greatness. You should try to walk in it and lean into it as much as you can.
Well, that's really beautiful. I think we'll end there, but I want to thank you so much for speaking with
Thank
me. The
you.
show is amazing, your performance is amazing, and I wish you the
Thank
best of
you.
luck.
Same pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.